Well, hello again. Nearly missed the start because I'm so busy chatting to tonight's guest that we were talking about all sorts. And very interestingly, one of the things that we did have a chat about was the AI that is coming up into that people are generating art through AI. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I've got my own feelings about it, which is not great, to be fair. I can see that if you wanted to create a picture in a certain style and you were selling them as prints, then AI, you could easily produce that. But it doesn't give you what the artists themselves can give you. You don't get that feeling into it at all, in fact. So, yeah, it's probably an interesting conversation for another show for sure. But you won't see any AI art at the Flux exhibition. So just a reminder, a few little things. Firstly, edition 12 of the Flux Review magazine has landed, 200 pages of creative inspiration. You can get your edition there. It's soon to be a hardback copy as well, so you can get a limited edition version of that as well, should you want that. But not only that, of course, we have the Flux exhibition, 17th to 20th of July. I think there are still a few tickets for the private view, but you just need to do a search on Eventbrite for that and you will get some tickets. It's going to be quite an eventful night. There's performances there, etc. going on. I'll give you a bit of a flavour of it. It's in this amazing building called the Bomb Factory. We spend the whole week putting this exhibition together. So there's over 70 artists, 500 and what did she tell me today? 538 pieces of art. So quite a lot to choose from for sure. And again, as I said, this gives you a bit of an idea of what kind of goes on the private view. And also there will be a performance by Scarlet Butterfly, and it's hosted by Anaphylactic as well. Next thing really is next week's guest is Peter Lee, and you can see the kind of photographic work that he does. So he's my guest next week, which will be pretty cool. So let's go back now to talk about tonight's guest. So I was interested to see what my guest does tonight, because it's, again, every time I do these, I learn something completely new. So Kristi's process combines structure with intuition. She starts with a feeling and lets the piece evolve naturally through layers of texture and symbolism. So each piece is crafted, carefully crafted with acrylics, oils and charcoal. And that bit I found absolutely fascinating. So it's something that we're going to be talking about. But before we do that, I have actually got a little video that I put together to show you her work. There you go. Like I said, pretty amazing, and we're going to find out exactly how she creates all that by bringing her into the actual talk. Kristi, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
How are you?
Yeah, good. I think the it looks like the video and sound have got to catch up a little bit, but we will get there. I'll probably do that very shortly. Um, so what we've done is we've seen a little bit of your work there, um, but what I'm really interested in is where did you start? What's your background? Where did you start to be realize that you wanted to be an artist for number one?
Okay.
And which process was where was the process for that? Because um, as I've just explained to people, it's acrylic, it's oil, it's charcoal. So
Mhm.
did you start with one, work your way through the others? What's where have you how have you got to where you are with your work?
Um, I like experimenting and I
Mhm.
like using everything. And I do tend to use other things as well, like spray paints and gold leaf, but mostly I love acrylic and oils and charcoal. So I started as a child drawing. Um, I didn't really paint, and I didn't know that I was gonna go into art. It was just something I loved doing. I loved people, looking at people, drawing them, sketching them, and then I didn't touch art, painting at all until a couple of years ago. So I
Oh,
had a career. I went to university and studied chemical engineering. I had a career in corporate for quite a while until I ended up with a burnout. So I started painting kind of to reconnect with myself. At first, I thought I'll try acrylics because that's what people say is the easiest thing to do. And I got so obsessed with doing it. I don't think that, by the way, not at all.
I certainly don't think that. I think acrylics can
No.
be actually sometimes they can be harder.
Exactly. It depends what you're trying to achieve, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I would just spend all my time painting with no plan. I wasn't planning to, become an artist. It was just something that I loved to do. Um, and started experimenting with different media and oils. I fell in love with oils. So now I tend to always start every painting with fluid washes of acrylic. So I mix it with a lot of water. I have several layers that I apply one on top of the other to create a little bit of dimension, but I want them thin um, and almost translucent, see through. And then I might do a bit of sketching in charcoal, seal that, and then on top I finish all of my paintings in oil paint to add the dimension, especially for things like blur. It's really amazing, I
Yeah,
think.
that I mean that's really interesting because I don't think I've interviewed anybody that does that actually. I think you're a
Really?
first. Yeah, I
Wow.
don't think pretty sure I've not I've had artists that have used charcoal, artists that have used oil and acrylic, but never an artist, I don't think anyway. I don't think I've had an artist that's mixed all of them together. So if you're gonna do that, um, what do you apply over the because I can understand the acrylic first because that would dry quick.
Hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Um, but if you're going to be putting the charcoal on next and then the
Hmm.
oils, how do you
Yeah.
stop the two mixing together? If you see what I mean.
So I always seal it. Obviously, I seal the charcoal, but what I tend to use after is GAC 100.
Okay.
So if I use raw canvas with
Mm.
acrylic to create the fluid wash, if I apply oils on top, it might go into the fibers and actually ruin them over time. So this surface has to be protected. So I apply GAC 100, and that first I spray the charcoal to make sure it doesn't actually um, move. And then on top, I go over with the GAC 100, wait for it to dry, and then I paint with oils.
Okay. So what was it then that made you actually decide on this technique? What was it that pushed you down this direction? Because it is unusual, or I feel it's
Really?
unusual. Um, but was it one day you just thought, I'll give that a try, or did
So
something else influence you? Or
So I know that I really love using charcoal, but nowadays I don't use it as much, even though I really want to go back to using it more, so it's more pronounced in my paintings, a bit more obvious. But some of the things that I wanted to play with more recently is raw canvas, because I love the organic look and feel of it, and also the way the acrylic paint spreads on it when you mix it with water. But the downside of it was that you couldn't apply oils over the top. And I don't often see people painting with oil paint on raw canvas, because obviously it can ruin it. So when I was doing my research, I found out that you can actually apply GAC 100 and then also apply oils on top. I think the reason I ended up doing all of this is because I didn't want to give up either one of those media and the raw canvas. I wanted to use them all together. So, because I like each one for different things, they all create, I don't know, they all have their own special features, and I didn't want to lose it. So, that's how I came around doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. It's and so how many trials before you got the perfect technique?
I think I think we're all a work of progress, aren't we? So I'm always looking for ways to do better the next time.
Hmm.
I first maybe, I don't know, it's really difficult to say. I've been painting, instead of a stretched canvas, I would just buy a roll of raw cotton canvas and I would rip it into pieces, and then I would try different things on it to make sure, you know, what works and what doesn't. So
Okay, that's cool.
I would do that for a while before
Hmm.
I started actually painting on the big stretched canvas.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, maybe, I don't know, tens of pictures I did
Yeah.
to try and
Yeah,
practice
I
it.
mean, and I think you're right. I think everybody that's an artist, their technique is always improving. It doesn't mean that the first works are any worse than the current works. I don't mean that at all. What I mean is it's just that you learn things to perhaps do things a bit quicker than when you
Hmm.
first started. So that kind of I feel that helps. Let's sort of have a bit of an idea with look, I've shown the video, but we'll get some of the pictures up. So I can bring this up here. You can see now that you've kind of given us a bit of an indication there. What How do you choose? And I did mention this to you during the week that I would ask you this, but what determines your color palette? Is it a feeling of the picture that you're going to be painting, or does it evolve as you paint it? Because I'm guessing from what you said about a color wash at the of acrylic over the background, that means you've got to kind of choose pretty much early on what kind of color this is going to start off with.
Hmm. Yeah. So before, in the beginning, I used to just squirt every single color on a palette and just have a go at it. And I think with time, I've realized that actually restricting and limiting yourself gives you more creative freedom, because then you're not just focusing on which color you're gonna go, but more focused on the value or the emotion.
Right.
So before I start each painting, I actually have an idea of the color scheme. I do think about which color, what I'm trying to show with the painting. If it's purple, maybe it's going to be calmness, or if it's neutral colors, maybe I want to show something raw and organic. So I will have an idea in my head, and I might even do a few sketches with the color to make sure there is a balance and a harmony, and I'm happy with it. But what I actually use to arrive at color schemes is, a lot of the time I'm very inspired by nature. So on my walks, if I see something really beautiful, I will take a photo of it. And
Okay.
if I feel like, wow, the harmony in this image is so beautiful, I will usually take a photo and I might use it as an inspiration for some of my color schemes. So now I always pick my colors beforehand and I put everything away to stop myself from reaching for more, and I actually just use the selection that I've picked in advance. Obviously, if with time I feel like it looks a little bit unbalanced and it might need a complementary color, then I'll add that in. But I leave that stuff usually for the end.
Right. I'm just going to go back to the last part. I think
Okay.
your sound and vision went out there a little bit, so just come back to this. So you mentioned there about on your walks. So is that
Mhm.
again? Are you, when you're going out for a walk, are you spending time looking and your eyes are everywhere, thinking, "Oh, there, I can use that in the next."
Yeah.
Yeah, good
Yeah,
idea.
I think about it all the time, especially for colors, not necessarily for sources, but more so for colors or the way the light shines on things.
Mm,
So I mostly notice that a lot in nature. And I
right.
try to, I feel like nature has everything in it already. So I'm not trying to recreate the wheel, with anything. And I love to take my inspiration from the nature. So
Okay. So what about the actual models? So are they people that you know? Are they people you completely make up? Are they
oh,
based on yourself? What's the sort of theory? What's the
this
background
is
to that?
a really interesting question because I'm always asked if I paint self-portraits, and I absolutely don't paint self-portraits. Um, but maybe I just have a certain style of a person that I tend to paint most of. And yes, I usually do use a source image for my overall figurative pieces.
Hmm.
And if I feel like changing anything, then I do. But they're not made up people, they're real people.
Right. Okay. So so what is it that it's going to be probably a difficult question to answer, I guess, but I'm going
Okay.
to ask it anyway. If do you wake up in the morning and think, right, today this is what I'm going to paint, or do you start by selecting your perhaps photographs that you've taken and think, okay, this one would go with that. I can use that from my walk to go with this particular one. I mean, look, as an example, this one here. Um,
Mhm.
you know, you're when you're coming up with the idea of this image, for example, what's your starting point?
Okay, so the starting point is actually um, might not have an idea. I might have just an initial feeling of what I want to paint, but I might not have the full image in my head just yet. So I
Right.
might start with just doing a few washes and seeing what I'm enjoying, how it's turning out. And then once I can see some patterns, then I start looking for a source for the figurative part. And then I start thinking, I think this is where it would go well. So I do have an idea of what I want to paint, but I'm not set on who exactly or how it will look at the end, in the end.
Right.
But to keep me, I don't, like you said, I don't actually wake up every morning knowing what I'm going to paint, but I do try to start my day with just painting anything, even if it's just for half an hour, even if it's just a sketch to get myself out of my head. So I'm already not overthinking and just going with it. And usually, as I'm painting, I'm getting more and more ideas of what I want to paint next, or
Okay.
what I'd like to explore.
Just going to again, I'm going to bring us back to here because you're just fading out. There we go. Back again. Yeah. I think your internet keeps dropping a little bit. But my question then would be, what sort of size are your paintings? Are they? Do you vary? You know, what determines what size they're going to be?
Yeah, they're varied. I enjoy painting large and small pieces. Mostly, I paint, I would say, starting from about 16 by 20 inches. Um,
Okay.
I don't tend to paint any smaller than that, just because I like to layer a lot of different things and a lot of symbolism. So, um, yeah, that's kind of the minimum size I tend to go with.
Yeah.
And then I think the largest piece I did was 120 by 90 centimeters.
Okay.
So it was quite
Decent
a
size.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite big.
So for anybody watching in the UK where we're still in inches, well, no, we're not actually. We're not really in inches, but there are quite a few people around my age who still remember inches. That's about 4 foot by 3 foot. So yeah, that's a big, big, big picture. Um, and if you're working on a raw canvas, which you've mentioned, are you then doing something to that before you put your acrylic on, or is your acrylic that is the base coat? That's it. There's nothing. You go straight on.
So it depends how much fluidity I want on in the background.
Okay.
Most of the time I mix clear gesso with water. So I do like a 50-50 mix and I apply a layer of it. It just helps the charcoal grip a little bit better and the paint
Ah,
grip better rather than just spread too
yeah,
much.
yeah.
So I do tend to apply a little bit of a clear gesso over the top.
Right. So if you're again when you're putting your work together, because there's I'm going to go back to your note, which basically says that it starts with a feeling and lets the piece evolve naturally through layers and textures. But let me just uh, let me just look at some of these. Let me just bring these up for a minute, because we can see by looking at these, or it feels to me anyway, that there is there's a story in each image, and this kind of look that you've got, um, to me, I'm looking at that picture, for example, and I'm wanting to know what's going on in her head, what's her feeling, what is it, what's caused her to have that look. So if you're going to create something like that, I'm going to go back to this. If you're going to create something like that and you want to create that sort of emotion that's in your work, um, is that emotion, are you effectively portraying the emotion you feel into
Yeah.
that? Yeah, okay.
Exactly. You really said it right. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Mm,
Because all my work is around identity and the tension between who we are and who we're told to be.
mm.
So I want to express a lot of that and those feelings that women tend to experience. But I want to focus on the overcoming on the positive side rather than the struggle. So yeah, all of them do have a story. They definitely do, and all of them are around the identity.
So you're based Manchester direction in the northwest, and Flux is in London. So what's your intention? Are you coming down for the whole time?
I am, yes. I'm actually gonna
Good.
go down with my family, with my husband and my children.
Right.
So,
Mm,
my children are really excited to go because we want to make it a mini trip away,
okay.
see some friends as well in London. Um, yeah, so we'll probably just go as a family.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
good. I mean, it's a definitely a family friendly exhibition. There's nothing that would make it not so, to be fair. But you need to make it worthwhile. You're coming a long way. So it's very true.
Yeah.
But looking at your, your on your website, you've had exhibitions in a few different places, Paris being one of them as well, which is. But I can, like everybody else listening to you, there's a definite accent there. So whereabouts are you actually originally from? Where's that accent from?
So I have a really mixed heritage. I was
Mm,
born in what was then USSR. Now
okay.
it basically, I don't know if you know Northern Caucasus.
Let me think about that. No.
Okay. No, okay. Basically, it's the southernmost part of Russia, which is bordering with Armenia, Georgia,
Okay.
Azerbaijan.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm originally from that part, and I have basically a mix of Armenian and Ukrainian in me. So yeah,
Okay.
and but I did come to the UK when I was about 12 or 13,
Right.
so it was a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. Okay, so but you wouldn't you, none of that has influenced you in your art. You kind of because obviously I guess from if you were sort of 12 when you came here. So
Mhm.
eh, this is I find it quite interesting that this has come from somewhere. And generally,
Mhm.
I mean, looking at your let's bring your website up because that would be quite a good one to do. Um, share that. So there's a picture here showing you actually doing your work. But if we go to your homepage, um, you can see exactly what I'm sort of kind of getting at, which is that look at the emotion that's in every single image. It's quite amazing how I look at every one and I want to know what's going on, and that maybe that's just because I'm nosy. I don't know, but I want to know what is actually going on. What's the story behind these pictures? And you can see also if we go to this one, you can see there's a lot going on in these pictures. And when I click on that, you can see what they're like on the wall as well, which is cool. So you've got a great website. I did say that to you the other night. And so here's a little heading which says commissions. Does that mean that you sit with somebody and then create this, or do you go along and photograph them? What is your, let me stop that and bring you back. What's your process if you're going to be doing a commission? Is it something that you work from photographs, or do you take and go and sit and actually do something right in front of them?
No, usually it's from photographs.
Okay.
Usually I work with the customer to
Yeah.
develop the idea.
Yeah.
I'm trying to ask them and understand what is their vision, what exactly do they want,
Hmm.
what feeling do they want, what emotion do they want the painting to evoke, and then I come up with some ideas in terms of style and color scheme. Obviously, it's still painted in my style, but with their vision.
Right.
And then I usually ask to send me a number of pictures and or paintings or anything that they find beautiful, anything that makes them feel something, so I can kind of gauge what type of person they are, what
Ah.
they love. um, and it just helps me then to make sure that they're happy in the end.
So you're basically tapping into their emotions and feelings to
Exactly.
create a unique picture that's for them.
Exactly.
Oh, that's very
Yeah.
cool. And yeah, that's very cool. Just to give people a bit of an idea of size as well, you can see um, this is obviously now. Is your studio a studio, or is it a studio that you've got at home, or is it actually do you rent somewhere, or how does that work for you?
So my studio is my converted garage,
Okay.
which I'm very grateful to have. It's a
Yeah.
really lovely space. I did consider renting somewhere, but having two small children, it's just so easy to
Impossible.
be. Well, exactly. It is
Yeah,
nice that it's separate from the house and I can just shut the door if I want to
yeah,
work, late
yeah,
at
yeah,
night.
yeah.
But yeah, it's still good to be here for the school pickups.
Yeah, well, exactly. But it's an interesting time, really. Art. It's starting to pick up in terms of people wanting to have their own commission. They want something. I've been asked a few times, could I create a portrait for someone for a Christmas present? But generally, when people find out how much that's going to cost, it's well, I don't spend that much on him, is the that kind of thing. But I think it's quite interesting how well, the other thing as well is, which we spoke about earlier, is there is going to be an interior design event at Flux. So I think it's on the Saturday. And we were talking about this earlier, and you said to me that you didn't think that portraiture fitted very well with interior design. And I said to you that I don't agree with that, because there are plenty of examples where portraits are sitting on the wall. Now, if you think about it in a different way, go to a stately home. Every picture on the wall is a portrait. So,
Mhm.
in reality, portraits do work. I just think it certainly works where your portraits are telling a story, which they are.
Mhm.
And I think what that does is that it brings out an emotion in the person actually looking at your picture. So I think it's really quite important that that message is put across. And I would say to you at Flux that you do put that message across. I say this to every artist actually that's going to be have their work on the wall and they're going to be there talking about it. That's the thing. Talk about it. Don't just stand
But
there and say, "Oh, I like my art does the talking," because it doesn't.
no,
It's it doesn't. But
absolutely.
the thing that people will want to know more than anything is, what's your influence, which you haven't spoken about yet, but what's your influence? What kind of what technique do you use? Where do you start? People will want to know that. And so, and you'll probably get fed up with saying it, because you say it for 3 or 4 days, but people will want to know that, and it's quite important. So let's jump back a little bit. Has there been an influence for you in the kind of work that you do, in terms of this style of portraiture, not the technique you're using, but the style of portraiture? Has there
Mhm.
been an influence for that for you? Is there other artists whose work you admire that's given you a bit of an idea?
I'm not sure if there's anybody with the same style. At least I
No.
don't know. I don't know
No.
them. But
Hmm.
of course, I have inspiration in other artists. One of the modern artists, like contemporary artists that I really, really love, she's called Helena B. Klaus, and her work is so beautiful. It's so emotional. It's emotional in a different way to mine.
Mm.
But I remember first seeing her work a couple of years ago, and I couldn't stop talking about her. I all the time I spoke about her with everybody. I just completely love her aesthetic, the way she actually works with charcoal a lot, and I love her process. She often posts it on Instagram.
Hmm.
Her portraits are definitely different. She kind of draws them in charcoal, but I do get inspired by her very often, at least by her aesthetic, for
Mm.
sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously I'm a photography based artist, and one of the ways that if you're learning to do composite work, which mine is, if you're learning to do that, one of the ways of doing it is to say, and this comes from a fantastic photographer. He hates me calling him an artist, but he is. Um, because his work is incredible. But the way that he teaches people to start off is by trying to replicate a film poster, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be a poster for Marvel. Take one of the Marvel film posters, try and replicate that, try and look at the composition and etc. And then what that happens is that it's not that it becomes an influence, but what it does is it gives you the basics of being able to actually put something together.
Mm-hmm.
And I've probably got 10 influences that have influenced me right from when I started. I think there's a lot of people that have actually influenced the way that I work all the way through, because sometimes, for instance, if there's a new technique I want to learn, then I'll find somebody that can show me how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that in doing so, you're watching their work, and their work, it's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit goes in, and you think, oh yeah, actually, I could use that technique to do something else. So
Exactly.
yeah, for me, it does make a big difference. So you're doing Flux. What other kind of exhibitions or anything have you got planned this year?
I haven't got any more plan. I've actually applied for two, but they
Hmm.
close, I think, in August, so I should find
Okay,
out around
right.
then. But I'm not trying to overwhelm myself too
Yeah.
much with too many exhibitions, although I do love doing them because I love talking to people. And like you
Mm.
say, a lot of my work is emotive, so it's really important to get that message across rather than
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
saying like, oh, it's a pretty picture, because that's not really what it's just all about.
Mm.
So
So I can see one of your pictures behind you. So
yeah,
is that let me just put myself up in the corner. So is that an original, or is that a print? And if it's a
isn't
print,
that one?
yes.
Yeah, it's a print.
Okay, so good. I'm glad to see that, because I have a real thing about this. There's a lot of artists who don't do prints of their originals. And for me, that is a given, because, look, my work's printed on metal, but I will do paper prints because they're affordable.
Mhm.
B, if someone's got a print of your work on the wall, other people are going to see it. It's an
Mhm.
advert. It's an advert. And you can
Exactly.
therefore, you can have prints for sale. People can afford them. They might not be able to afford your full original, but they're in love with it so much they can afford that.
Mhm.
Other people come around the house, love the picture, find your website. It's promotion as well as selling prints. So, but I've got a bit of a thing about that, because there's an awful lot of artists who just don't do that when it's a missed opportunity. I
It
think,
is
yeah, I
definitely.
think
I think
it's
it's sorry, you go.
no. Carry on.
I think a lot of it is around the limiting beliefs that, artists have to be starving or you shouldn't make your own way and wait to be discovered, I suppose. So I feel like a lot of it is around that. But I also think it's really important to have autonomy and maybe take your life in your own hands. For me, having prints is an accessible way to connect with so many more people who might enjoy my work
Exactly,
but not be able to
exactly,
afford it. So I want to be
exactly.
inclusive of these people
Mm,
rather than excluding them on the
yeah.
basis of their status or not being able to afford something.
And it's absolutely true. It kind of it doesn't diminish from anything. I think that the only time it does diminish from things, if you start having your pictures put onto coffee mugs and things like that. I think that then you really do have to be careful. You have to kind of almost decide where your work sits. If you've only got to walk into any department store and see loads of work on the walls, the chances are now that an awful lot of that will be AI generated, just like everything else. Um, it, and it's quite interesting when I'm putting as another example to this, and I know that Elton John's done a big thing about this last week, but when I'm putting your video together, or any videos that I do for this, there's a website I go on to get the music. Now, I am a musician. I could spend my time creating the music quite easily. I don't have time, but I go onto a website where I can get the music that I feel is right for what I'm doing. And I always select the ones that someone has actually created, because there's an awful lot on there now. There didn't used to be last year, but there's an awful lot on there now. And it says AI generated, AI generated. Well, that's taking something away from the musician. And we are now talking about potentially it taking away something from the artist. So, as I've said, if people come to Flux, they will see that your work is not AI generated. And they will also see that nobody else is either. It's and I struggle with it. I was watching something where we are going to get to a point where we will be going to watch films that have got James Dean in it, for example, who's been long dead, and or you can put into chat GPT, write me a song in the style of Sting, and it will. That's just not right. Just because someone can type the right prompt doesn't make them an artist in any form. So I think we should be celebrating the fact that an artist is exactly what it says, an artist, not someone clever enough to type a few words into a screen. That's my rant over for tonight. But but what I'm getting at is, you can see. I don't feel. I might be wrong, but I don't feel that you could get the same sort of emotion that's in your work. Looking at the picture behind you as an example, you can't get that sort of emotion from an AI generated image. It always looks fake. I feel it always looks fake. So it could have the opposite effect, I suppose. It could make artists and art worth even more money because they are completely original. That's fingers crossed.
I think so, actually. This is my
Yeah.
thinking. I think you're right with that,
Yeah.
because it cannot fully replicate what you're doing. It can only
No,
get its data points from what happened in the past rather than
that's right.
what you're going to create in the future.
That's right. It's interesting, isn't it? It's I suppose from your point of view, what kind of body of work have you got? What is how many paintings have you actually got? If someone said to you, okay, we're going to give you an exhibition tomorrow, a solo one in London or Manchester or anywhere in the world, how many paintings could you actually say, all right, I've got all these paintings, I'll put them on I'll submit them?
That's a really good question. I don't actually count them, and I only put my best work out there because I paint every day. I try and paint a study every day. But if I were to say roughly, maybe 40, 50 pieces
Yeah.
that are not studies. And then I don't know how many studies I've got, loads. Everybody's
So
had enough of all my work here in the house.
and that's interesting for me because I've got somewhere between 300 and 400, I would say, but not all published or printed. I've done them, but because of the amount of money I have to spend actually having my work printed on metal, it means I've got to actually think, is that something someone's going to buy? So you'll do a lot of work, as you've just said, that's probably for you, but not necessarily one that you'd say, I think I will show that and sell that. So it's interesting, isn't it? Whereas I do a lot of talks, and one of the questions I ask people is, how many of you have got loads of pictures, photographs or whatever on your computer, in the loft, wherever you've got them in the house. How many of you got them? All put their hands up. And my next question is, how many of you sell them? Very, very few, if any at all, put their hand up. So the step is, I'm an artist. Yes, everybody tells you your work's amazing. It takes a lot of courage to then say, I'm going to put this on the wall for someone to buy. That's the step. And I think once you go over that step and you then start selling, it all becomes easy after that, being able to do it. But it's that initial bit of courage that you need to say, not only am I going to put my work out there, but I'm also going to be prepared to take some criticism, because trust me, you get that. You do get people. I've even had somebody say to me once that their 4-year-old could do better, and I thought, oh, please don't say that. That's just derogatory, which is ridiculous.
I've had something similar as well. People
Yeah.
always have something negatives to say, but I don't really let that get to me. If it's constructive feedback, I would choose potentially to listen to that. But any of that other stuff, it's just not interesting.
Well, and I think so. Here's a good point about this too. Is what upsets me more than anything else is if I get somebody walk past my pictures and not actually stop and look. I want to run after them, bring them back, and go, whoa, hold on a minute, what's going on? Why didn't you look? But and you do get that, because it's just not what they're after. They could be there for abstract, could be there for something different. It's not what they're after, but that's the one that gets me. It's
really?
a bit, yeah. It's
but
a little
then
bit like,
it's the same as, do you like every single genre of music?
No, and it is like that. You're right. Although my taste in music's changed, it still stays where it always has been, which is in the soul funk jazz type. But I am open to listening to all sorts of others. It's just that I agree with that. That's a prime example. But it's a little bit like a comedian on stage playing to a big audience. The only person who he spots that really bugs him is the person who's sitting with their arms folded and not laughing. He will spot him, and in his head he will be wondering why is he not laughing? And it's a little bit like that. It's I have something that kind of always I say this a lot because it happens a lot. So I've got a particular one of my pictures is a huge steampunk airship sitting in a bay. I went over to Kefalonia to photograph all the cliffs, to build the image, and every time I show it, every single time without fail, there will be a man standing there going, "Oh my word! I've got to have it. I absolutely have got to have it." Right? And then he says the words which I know straight away means he's not going to have it at all, which is, I'll just run that past my wife and I'll never see him again.
Of course.
Because I could see her straight away saying, what do you want that for? And that's it. So, you have to be able to actually, if people are going to buy your work, then they both need to like it, of course, unless it's somebody who's buying it for themselves, perhaps in their office or whatever. It's different, but they both have to like it. It has to be something that they're both investing in it. If they're a couple, they're both investing in it. So it's quite interesting to sort of kind of watch the psychology play out at an exhibition. And it's, watching the people walking around and just watching what they do and who they talk to, and the kind of, you will easily see how what people are actually genuinely interested in, and therefore you kind of you start to come to terms a little bit with with the fact they've just walked past and not even looked at your work. So, so it's yeah. I don't know. I know that Lisa is doing the layouts right this minute.
Okay.
So we were talking about this today because we had a meeting. We're talking about the way the walls are all lined out. The fact that she can get another wall in from last year. I have no idea where you're placed within the actual building. There are 3 rooms.
Right,
So
I
there's
didn't realize that.
yeah, there are 3 rooms. They're all opened up with each other. But there are three rooms. So you come in the door. There's a big room right in front of you. You turn right, another huge, great big room there, which is opened up with the previous one. Turn left through 2 different entrances, another big room there as well. So it's yeah, as I said, there's 70 artists and something like 530 odd pieces of art and sculpture. So it's a big exhibition, big choice, and I think so. The one thing that, again, to let you know, as you've not done it before, Lisa curates it and puts artists together that will so that makes the exhibition flow. So you won't find 2 people's work next to each other that's identical or anything. That's just not in the styles. It's not what she does. She makes it so that it flows. So there is one telling me today there is one area that she calls the Devon area because there are quite a lot of artists from Devon who come up to do the show. So she tends to put them together because they're all friends, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
Actually, the reason how I found out about Flux is from an artist from Devon. So,
Okay, who was that?
Amanda.
Amanda Tamoth. Amanda, yeah. Amanda Tamoth Art, she is on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think her surname is Leon. I don't know how to say that right.
Yeah. She's yeah, Amanda. So I've interviewed Amanda. You'll see her on my Instagram. Sorry, on my YouTube. She's won gold medals for Great Britain in dragon boat racing.
I actually watched
Amanda
with
Lyons.
her.
Yeah, Amanda
That is
Lyons
so
Smith.
cool.
Yeah, it's Amanda
Yeah.
Lyons Smith, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't think. Yeah, well, she's like, yeah, she is hilarious. If she can, and if she offers you, she'll kill me for saying this, but if she offers you her water bottle, yeah, it'll be vodka. Just letting you know, it'll be
No
vodka.
way. Okay, I'll stay away.
yeah, she's fantastic. Yeah, her and Diana as well. They're both they're great, and that's the whole little crew that come up from Devon are brilliant. But that's fantastic. Right, well, look, we've got a few minutes left. I'm just going to bring up some of the other pictures that we didn't get to. So I did that one, and then again, so there's in all of these all of your work, there's quite a lot with closed eyes, actually, which kind of gives you, yeah, I love this one, I've got to say. It gives you that feeling. There's one without, however, it, it does really make you feel as though you want to know, that you want to know what are they thinking. And so let's just say, for argument's sake, I've come along to Flux and I've pulled up, there's one of your pictures on the wall, and I turn around to you and say, what is the emotion in that picture conveying? Tell me what that woman in that painting, tell me what she's thinking. What's gone through your head to create that? Someone will ask you.
Okay, so just to give an example, let's just talk about this one.
Yeah.
The one that you like. That one, it's got some cracks and in charcoal, and it's got some camomiles growing through the cracks. So that painting was inspired by basically the resilience of the chamomile growing through harsh environments,
Whoa.
just like all wildflowers.
Yeah.
And that painting is called Unearthed. So the name is also equally important,
Yeah,
because
it is. Yeah.
it needs to match the overall emotion of what I'm trying to show. So Unearthed is about the resilience and basically realizing that you are enough, you already have whatever it takes, and you are just stepping into who you are. Not not broken by the struggle, but actually coming out on top, and not hardened by it, but still staying soft as you are. So that's kind of the meaning and the emotion and the experience as well that I think a lot of us feel or have experienced.
Right, so that leads me on to what will be my final question, because the hour is almost up, believe it or not, is where do you get your titles from? Because the title, as you've just said, the title is seriously important. I ask this a lot every time, actually, because the title can really help somebody understand what's going on in the image. So that does the when you finish the painting, is that when the title comes to you, or have you
So
got that idea right at the start?
I don't have that idea. I don't often have that idea. I know what I want to show. But once the painting is finished, I spend such a long time thinking of the name. I spent ages, and I keep on writing it down and checking it over a few days. Is this the right one? Is this what I'm trying to show with this painting? And it might be, and it might not be. So usually I do think about the name as I'm painting it, but it does come to me after I've finished and after I've
Right.
had some time to digest and feel it myself rather than in the process.
Brilliant. Right. Well, firstly, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure, and I've learnt a lot, and I'm sure that I will have a good old chat with you at Flux, and perhaps learn quite a bit more, I suspect. Very much looking forward to seeing all your paintings in the flesh, as they say. It will be quite amazing, and you will have such a good time on the Thursday night at the PV. As I said, there's an awful lot of people come. All I can say is make sure you drink plenty of water, because you will be talking a lot.
Okay.
So, but
Thank you.
it will be absolutely superb. So
Thank
thank you very much for coming on. Don't rush away. Just hang on while I wind this up. I'll just have a little quick chat afterwards. But for now, thank you very much for coming on. It's been brilliant.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So there you go. That's quite different, something quite different, because I've not interviewed anybody that's done anything remotely like that in the past. So it's really quite amazing, actually. Just to jump back here, just to remind you that next week I've got a photographer, Peter Lee, who creates some amazing work. I've actually been sent his work, and you're going to love it. There's another photographer coming on in a couple of weeks' time as well. So, and then I think following on from Peter, we also have Carolina Skorek, which I was told today is a bundle of fun. So we will see in a couple of weeks' time if that's actually true or not. But for now, thanks for watching, and I will catch you all same time, same place next week.